In this video, we'll be going over IRS Form W-12, the IRS Paid Preparer Tax Identification Number application and renewal. The Paid Preparer Tax Identification Number, also known as a PTIN, is a requirement for anyone who receives compensation for preparing or substantially preparing tax returns. If you're an enrolled agent, you're also required to obtain and maintain your PTIN from year after year. So what we're going to do is we're going to go through this form, and then we're going to discuss some considerations and other filing requirements. But you can also dive deeper for a little bit more detail in our article, which we'll post the link in the show notes. But you can also go straight to teachmepersonalfinance.com. If you type in IRS Form W-12, you'll see our article appear. So, as I mentioned, if you're a paid tax return preparer, if you're a tax professional, then you would be required to obtain a PTIN and then maintain it year after year. So let's get into the depth of this form, and then we'll cover some of the other items. So we'll go step by step, and I'll go through, in this case, our hero John Doe, who's applying for a PTIN, and then with each step of this, we'll talk about some of the guidance from the form instructions. So starting with line 1, the name and PTIN. So if this was a renewal application, you would enter a PTIN here. Let's just say, for example, something like that, right? Every PTIN starts with a P. That P is already here, and then you would enter the rest of the number if you're renewing this. In this case, John Doe is, this is his first application, his initial. So you can also inactivate your PTIN by going into your PTIN account, which is on the IRS website. So you can voluntarily inactivate your PTIN in case you don't expect to prepare tax returns for a full calendar year. You would go to the PTIN account, select the inactivate PTIN function under your manage my PTIN account. You can then reactivate it within 3 years by selecting the reactivate PTIN. If you don't have an IRS online account, then you can call the 800 number. There's additional information in the form instructions. And for enrolled agents, again, you must maintain a current PTIN in order to maintain your credentials. So enrolled agents should not inactivate their PTIN unless they intend to retire. In line 2, we're going to indicate first, if you checked initial application, do you want this, and you're submitting the form between October 1st and December 31st, do you want the PTIN to be valid for the current year, meaning October 1st through December 31st, or the following year, which means that it would not be active until January 1st of the following year. We're not submitting this form between October 1st and December 31st, so we don't need to select either of these boxes. However, if you're applying for prior years, then you would also write each year down. So let's just say that John Doe was applying for a prior year. We would put something like, right, for 2021 and 2022, or actually since we're in 2024, it might be 2021 through 2023. And then you would pay the appropriate fees based on the form instructions. We'll get to that momentarily. So in line 3, we're going to enter Social Security number. If you have one, you're required to provide it. So in this case, we've entered John Doe's Social Security number. If you don't have a Social Security number, then you would check the not applicable box. If you don't do either of these, then the IRS will reject your PTIN application. So pay attention to these instructions. There are several places where the instructions specifically state multiple times that if this particular field is not answered one way or the other, then the IRS will reject your PTIN application. So this part right here is one of those. Enter your date of birth over here on the right hand side. Note that the instructions say you must be at least age 18 or older to apply for PTIN in the first place. Now, if you don't have a social security number, either because you're a U.S. citizen who's a conscientious objector, or if you're a foreign individual, you'll need to complete additional information either online or by mail in order to obtain your PTIN. So there's additional information in the show note or in the article if you qualify for one of those situations. So basically, for a conscientious objector, you would need to complete IRS Form 8945, which is the PTIN supplemental application for U.S. citizens without a social security number due to conscientious religious objection. And then foreign nationals would complete a similar form. It's IRS Form 8946, which is the PTIN supplemental application for foreign persons without a social security number. So if you fall into one of those categories, you would need to complete additional paperwork. In line 4, you're going to enter your complete personal mailing address and your telephone number. If the U.S. Postal Service does not deliver mail to your physical location, then you can enter the Postal Service post office box number for your mailing address. In line 5A, we're going to go over the business address. So in this case, you would check the box if that business address is the same as your personal address. You can also include your phone number. So let's just say that John Doe's phone number is different. You would enter that here. If you have an international business number, then you would enter that in the space provided. If you enter a business address, then it will be reflected on the IRS website under the directory of federal tax return preparers with credentials and select qualifications. In line 5B, this is going to ask whether or not you're self-employed. So in this case, I forgot to check yes, but yes, John Doe is self-employed. He owns Doe Enterprises. The CAF number is basically a 9-digit number that is associated with the IRS's centralized authorization file. And the CAF is basically a separate filing system for IRS employees to help safeguard taxpayer information. So the CAF, the centralized authorization file, is the listing of all persons who have been delegated some sort of tax information access or representation. So if you've completed IRS Form 2848, which is the IRS Power of Attorney form and declaration of a personal representative, or IRS Form 8821, which simply allows the IRS to divulge certain tax information to a third party, then that authorized party would be entered into the CAF with an assigned CAF number. The EIN is an employer identification number. It's a tax ID number for businesses and business entities, other non-person taxpayers such as estates and trusts. You can apply for an EIN if you don't already have one by filing Form SS4. That's the EIN application number. And we'll put links to articles and videos that we've created for some of these forms that I mentioned in this video. The electronic filer identification number, or EFIN, that is another number that a paid tax return preparer must obtain by establishing an IRS account, then submitting an online application. So if you have multiple EINs or EFINs, you would enter the one that appears on the most tax returns. And then your website address, the URL, this is optional. You can enter that in the space provided. In line 6, you would enter the email address that the IRS should use to contact you. So if you have any issues that come up or any matters about PTIN renewal, the IRS will send you messages to this email address. In line 7, you're going to check yes or no as to whether or not you've been convicted of a felony within the past 10 years. So if you've entered yes, then include the date and the type of any and all felony convictions. If you leave this blank and if you don't check yes or no, the IRS will not process your PTIN application. Simply because you have a felony does not necessarily mean that the IRS will disapprove your PTIN application. And if you omit your felony convictions, the IRS will find them. It is the federal government. They have ways to figure out whether or not you've been convicted of a felony. Oh, and when you sign this document, you're signing a sworn statement that you're telling the truth. So if you lie about this, then the federal government can actually come after you for additional penalties. Line 8, we're going to enter the address of your last U.S. individual income tax return if it was filed. So you would enter the address that you used on your latest income tax return. There's a checkbox in line 8 if you've never filed a tax return or you do not have a filing tax return or a tax return filing requirement. And then there's additional instructions in the line 8 instructions about for that pertains to people that have never filed a U.S. tax return. Basically, you would need to submit either an original or a notarized copy of your Social Security card, along with an original or a notarized copy of a photo ID issued by a government. So it could be a passport or your passport card. It could be an issued state-issued driver's license, military ID card, a state identification card. Those are all examples of acceptable photo ID documents. In line 9, you're going to check the appropriate box that applies to your filing status for that tax year. So let's just say that John Doe and his wife, Mary, filed in their 2023 tax return. They were married filing jointly. That's what you would put there. In line 10, you're going to answer whether or not you're current on both individual and business taxes. This includes any employment tax, corporate tax. So if you've never filed a U.S. tax return because you're not required to, check the yes box. That basically still means that you're in compliance. If you have to check no, then you need to provide a written explanation. And again, if you leave this blank, the IRS will disapprove your application. There are certain data security responsibilities that every tax return preparer must acknowledge. You can acknowledge it by checking this box, but you would find that information in either IRS publication 4557, Safeguarding Taxpayer Data, or IRS publication 5417, Basic Security Plan. In line 12, we're going to check one or more of the applicable boxes that relate to professional credentials. So this is only for active credentials, not for expired or retired credentials. So you've seen that I completed this space for John Doe's status as an enrolled agent with the expiration date. You could just as easily do something like this for, a certified public accountant, whatever their registration numbers are, and then whenever their expiration date is. So, and if you don't have a credential, then you would just simply enter none. You don't have to have a credential to have a PTIN. So, if you're just a state regulated tax return preparer, you would still have to have a license in certain jurisdictions. Right now, the primary ones that the IRS recognizes as state regulated would be Oregon, California, and Maryland. A certifying acceptance agent is someone that has entered a formal agreement with the IRS to allow them to assist alien individuals and other foreign individuals with obtaining an individual taxpayer ID number, or an ITIN. An ITIN is for either resident or non-resident aliens that have a tax purpose. It is a tax ID number for people who would not be, or who are currently not eligible or will never be eligible for a Social Security number. And then line 13 discusses fees. So if you're submitting your your application online, there will be a portal where you can make your PTIN application fee. So the fee for 2024 is $19.75. If you're having to, renew, or if you're renewing a PTIN that was suspended for previous years, then you would pay for the years that you did not already register. So in this case, John Doe, let's imagine that his credentials lapsed in 2022 and he's looking to renew in 2024. He would need to pay $19.75 for the 2022, $19.75 for the 2023, and then another $19.75 for the 2024 credential. Any years 2020 and prior, you don't have to pay a fee. But if you do send a check or a money order, you would need to send a unique check for each year. So this would be 3 checks. All of this information is highlighted right here. You simply need to pay attention to the details. We break it down a little bit more easily to read in our article. So you can sign here in blue or black ink and then date it. And then there's additional instructions on how you would do this online versus by mail. So if you do it by mail, you should allow up to 6 weeks for the processing. If you do this online, basically, as long as your payment goes through, you should get your PTIN immediately after you hit the submit application button. So that's basically all we have for this video. We go into a little bit more detail in our article, so check it out at teachmepersonalfinance.com. If you like our articles, please subscribe to our newsletter. If you like our YouTube videos, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. And if you have any questions or comments, or if there's a topic that you'd like to see in an upcoming video, please hit me up in the comment section. Thank you very much and have a great day.